So the Dolphins are now, if the season ended at this very moment, if Thanos snapped his fingers, spoiler alert, sorry, Wilson, and the season ended right now, the Dolphins would be the 7th seed in the AFC.
It's insane.
They just ripped off their first 7-game winning streak since 1985. Dan Marino, of course, in New Orleans for this game. He was involved in that. And they are 8-7 after a 1-7 start. Debo is licking his friggin' chops for a top 5 pick from the Dolphins just 7 weeks ago. And now there's a chance you get the 32nd pick, Debo. I mean, technically, look, I don't know what to make. Baltimore's now out. The Chargers were already out.
Was Baltimore the 8th seed? I was trying to figure out. Are the 7th seed coming into the night?
Yes.
Oh, they were? Good Lord. I'd already written them off. Okay. I was trying to figure out who dropped out.
Baltimore dropped out because of their crappy record against AFC teams.
So the 13th seed Denver, and there's only 2 weeks left. So there's, take this for what it's worth. But the 13th seed Denver is separated by just 2 games from the 3 seed Cincinnati. You're not going to pull off you're not going to get a chain of events that unfolds so much so that you go from 7-8 to in the playoffs, more than likely. But this is a massive game for playoff implications. Miami's playoff chances only went up 5% according to our sportsline.com simulations. I'm sure that I will be accused of being an anti-Dolphins or Dolphins hater by pointing that out.
You called them frauds.
I don't think that tonight necessarily changes that opinion, but that's okay. They've won 7 games in a row. That's
the first team to go 1-7 and then to lose 7 straight or whatever, and then turn around and win 7 in a row.
The first team to have a 7-game winning streak and a 7-game losing streak in the same season.
Yeah, there it is.
There we go, Wilson.
And that team has never made the playoffs until this year.
The Saints saw their playoff chances go from 40.2% down to 30.7%. So it's pretty crazy. The Saints actually have a better chance of making the playoffs.
Well, let me ask you this. Who do you think is more likely to make
Well, we'll get to the NFC in a second, then we can answer that question. But
you can answer it. It's a pretty simple question. Yes or no, we can move on.
I mean,
yeah, exactly. That's my point. All right, go ahead. Keep
really?
going. Yeah, no one thinks the oh my God. You think
Did you see Ian Book? They have no chance.
He's not playing this week.
Read the book, Brinson.
You read the wrong book. All right. What do you want to talk about that you couldn't answer one word? Give me a one-word answer to that question.
Jeez Louise, so hostile. By the way, Miami, the one knock on them in terms of their resume with the teams above them doesn't matter quite as much of the teams below them as that conference record. They do have a better conference record than Baltimore, same conference record as the Chargers. So, I mean, they're in good shape in terms of keeping the teams below them at bay.
Well, then why are they only 19% then?
Because of their remaining schedule.
Yes.
Because our simulation doesn't think they have a chance of going 2-0, probably not even 1-1, because they close in Nashville against the Tennessee Titans, and then they turn around and play the New England Patriots in the final week of the season.
They don't have a good chance of keeping the teams behind them at bay. That's why I was asking that question.
Well, I mean, if they win one of those, then the other teams have to go 2-0, and that's not a guarantee. So it's not, the Ravens have 2 tough games with the Rams and the Steelers. So,
oh, please.
And look, let me clarify. Let me clarify. When I say the Dolphins are a fraud, I don't mean that the Dolphins are a bottom 5 football team. What I mean is the Dolphins have ripped off wins against a pretty easy schedule, and that I am not entirely convinced that if their offense goes up against I don't think they can score a bunch of points against a good defense.
Their defense is playing really well.
They're playing very good.
Listen, they don't score a bunch of points against anyone. Their offense only scored 13 points in this game.
Right. That's sort of my point. But look, they won the game easily and handily.
But let me help you make your point, Brinson. You're saying that this team has won 7 straight games. They've beat Tyrod Taylor, Joe Flacco, a combination of Cam Newton and PJ Walker, Mike Glennon, your boy Brinson, Zach Wilson, Ian Book, and then, of course, you throw in Lamar Jackson. He's the one outlier, the good quarterback that he has that they've beaten. But besides that, you would hope that most teams would win these games. These are games you have to win if you're going to make the playoffs.
I hosted the pregame show, leading up to the game on CBS Sports HQ. Charles Davis came on, and he made the point, because I asked him, I was like, what's going on in this winning streak? And his number one argument was leadership and Brian Flores. And he noted that, you can say that they haven't played anybody, but we just saw the Chargers lose to the Texans. The Bills lost to the Jaguars. The Titans lost to the Jets and the Texans. There's myriad examples of good team. The Cardinals lost to the Lions. You could say, oh, that's a free win, but I'm just not sure that exists in the NFL. I mean, the question is, when we're talking about the Dolphins, are we talking about them as a contender to get to the playoffs or a contender to make noise in the playoffs? And I understand anyone can win once you get in, but I think there's a difference.
Here's the thing. I'm not crapping on the notion that this team has won 7 games in a row. I mean, Breech read off the list of quarterbacks that they beat. Well, there are good teams that didn't beat those quarterbacks, including the Titans, including the Bengals. Who are the other teams that lost to good teams, Breech? Oh, the freaking Bills. I mean, they should be kicked out of the league if they scored 6 points against the Jaguars team led by Urban Meyer. But I mean,
here's how the Dolphins can clinch a playoff berth: by winning out.
Well, Brinson, I think the thing that sums up how crazy the AFC playoffs are right now, because you mentioned Denver is only 2 games behind the Bengals, and that separates the 13 seed and the 3 seed, which is crazy. But I think another thing that sums it up is that the 10th seed in the AFC controls its own fate. That is the Raiders. If the Raiders win out, they're in the playoffs. You almost never see that with a 10 seed, that they can control anything. But usually they need like 7 other things to happen, or they need someone to lose, or they need this to happen or that to happen. The Raiders don't need any of it. If the Raiders win their last 2 games, they're in the playoffs. And those 2 games are against the Colts and Chargers. So 2 teams
would you
above
rather
them.
be the Raiders or the Dolphins?
I think if I had to bet money on either the Dolphins winning out or the Raiders winning out, and I didn't have a choice, I have to bet on one of them, I think I would probably take the Raiders.
Really?
I just think that the Colts have a bunch of COVID issues, and so that feels like, I don't think the Raiders are going to win, but the door is slightly open. And then the Chargers is a team they've played, it's a divisional rival, and they played well against.
So you're saying basically you take the Raiders among all the 8 and 7 teams: Miami, Baltimore, LA, Chargers, and Vegas?
No, you're asking me who I thought has a better chance of winning out of those 2 teams.
Yeah, but if you're saying Vegas is going to be the Chargers next week, or whenever they play, then I can't imagine. And you said, 3 weeks ago that Baltimore is going to miss the playoffs. So,
because I don't think the Raiders are going to beat the Colts, and that could change like what games have meaning in Week 18. And
all right, so among
my
Miami,
line of thinking,
Miami and Vegas, you're taking Vegas. Among Miami, Baltimore, Chargers, and Vegas, who are you taking? All the 8 and 7 teams, as we sit here. Only one. Life's on the line.
Probably the Chargers.
Okay. Even though they're going to lose to the Raiders potentially?
Well, I think they're going to beat the Broncos, and if the Raiders lose, then the Raiders will probably just be playing a spoiler role in Week 18, and the Chargers will be in a spot where if they win, they're in, and so that changes the dynamic of that game. But if the Raiders beat the Colts and the Chargers beat the Broncos, and all of a sudden that's a playoff spot on the line in Week 18, that changes the dynamic of the game. So there's a lot that goes into it.
So I just ran through very quickly. What I wanted to see was the playoff machine on ESPN. What I wanted to see was, is there a path? And there is, where the wild cards in the AFC are the Raiders, Colts, and Dolphins, which if you told somebody that, and the Raiders could get to the 5 seed, if you told somebody that a few weeks ago, they would have called you crazy. Essentially,
Raiders, Colts, Dolphins, is that what you said?
Yeah, that would be pretty insane. If the Raiders were the 5 seed, Colts were 6, and Miami were 7, all 3 10 and 7. So let's say that the Raiders beat the Colts, and that's how you get the Raiders above the Colts as the 5 seed. The Pats beat this is Week 17, of course. The Pats beat the Jaguars, and the Dolphins beat the Titans. Okay? And then I just went through and picked random teams for every other game. Just kind of slapped something up there. Then in Week 18, the Colts beat the Jaguars, which seems pretty reasonable. And the Raiders beat the Chargers at home, which is not outrageous at all, right?
We just talked about it moments ago.
Yeah, I think
Not outrageous at all.
too outrageous.
It could potentially set up a situation where the Dolphins and Patriots are playing for, it's like the loser is literally out of the playoffs. And we don't know what, we don't know what exactly time these games will be. They'll be shifted around and all of that. Presumably the Raiders and Chargers and Dolphins and Pats game would be at the same time. Same thing for the Colts because of the implications. But I mean, that's pretty insane. that could all shake out. That's not even an implausible situation. The game is in Miami. We've seen the Patriots lose that a ton.
It's not insane to think.
Like
They've lost 2 in a row. They've got some issues right now. They've got to work through.
Well, the funny thing is you're actually only replacing New England with Las Vegas in that scenario in terms of the teams that are in the playoffs.
Right. Well, I'm just saying that the simulation I just ran through, and then when I clicked everything else, it has Kansas City is the 1, Tennessee is the 2, Buffalo is the 3, Cleveland is the 4. Because I gave the
where are the Bengals?
Why would you have to do that, Brinson?
They lost I had the Bengals losing
you hate
to the Chiefs and then losing to the Browns, and they just missed the playoffs.
Oh, what? That is terrible. I hope that doesn't happen, Breech.
No, you don't. We know you don't hope that at all.
I probably missed something in here to screw up the stuff or whatever.
Well,
what's crazy is that the way the AFC is set up, you could have the AFC North winner, whether it's the Bengals, Ravens, or Browns, finish 9-8, and then have, I think,
all three wild. No, you can have all 3 wild.
No. You can have 2 10-7 teams miss the playoffs.
Oh yeah, that is correct. I think.
And by the way, if the Steelers win out and the Bengals lose out, the Steelers win the AFC North.
Oh, that's what I was trying to tell you last night, and you just weren't listening because you thought I was gloating. And I said secretly, I've been watching the Bengals for my whole life, and there's nothing more likely now than them losing the Chiefs and then losing in Week 18 and not getting in the playoffs. I don't even want to think about it now. See where you got my head going, Wilson? This is what you're doing. You're psyching me out.
Breech that maybe you're the problem? Ever since you've been born, the Bengals have been cursed?
I mean, their playoff losing streak started on my birthday in 1991, so it's definitely a plausible theory.
There you have it.
Definitely a plausible theory against the Raiders.
Hit that like button. I mean, this is it. Really, the AFC is just absolutely fascinating.
It's fun.
I mean, in terms of where you could go,
and by the way, I prefer the AFC version over the NFC version in that if, like Breech mentioned, some 10-7 teams don't make the playoffs, that stinks for them. But at least we're not getting some 6-win teams in the playoffs because you don't have any choice of who's left over.
It stinks when you're a 10-7 team that misses the playoffs when a 9-8 team got it. That's the stinky part.
Yeah, and we can have that conversation for sure. But at least you're not getting terrible football teams in that just because you're run out of but extra slots but not enough teams.
I mean, yeah, I'm fine with it. If a 10-7 team misses and a 9-8 team wins the division and gets in, again, we've talked about how hard the schedules were for the Ravens, Bengals, Browns, and Steelers to close out the season. It's not like, they were just a bad football team. They had really tough schedules.
And I'm okay with a team winning a division with a worse record than a team that doesn't make it, who finished second in their division. Now, I don't like a 10-win team not making it and then a 7-win team winning the division and getting in. That's a different.
You mean like the NFC East in like 3 of the past 8 years?
Yes, correct.